Okay, hello everyone. So today I wanted to do kind of a speed design of a new room I felt inspired by. So this room is going to be a Little Mermaid ride from Disney World, sort of like room, kind of basically I saw the Love Boat sort of thing on Webkinz News and I loved what they did. So I kind of wanted to try to make a similar sort of concept of like a track with, a car going through the different scenes from the movie. I felt I had a couple items that fit. So, what I do first in these design rooms is go through my dock and basically pick out any item that could work for it. And then I move to wallpaper. So, wallpaper is big, it helps set the scene. Played around with a couple. But I ended up on design or choosing the sort of under the sea wallpaper to try and, give the setting of being underwater. I felt like the ride is kind of underwater. Then I put down the track, so that'll kind of be the ride vehicles, and I figured I'd do sort of like four scenes. So one on the left, one in the corner, one on the right, and then one in the bottom corner. So I'm working on this sort of like under the sea one on the far left, maybe like Ursula's lair or Ariel's sort of like treasure trove in the middle. On the right, sort of the royal like palace when she comes out of the water. And then on the bottom, maybe like the happy ending. But I was really debating how I can make the out of water scenes sort of cover up the wallpaper to distinguish them from the underwater scenes because obviously the wallpaper is pretty limiting. So I had this idea of using these like houses in the background. And I feel like the antique shop actually worked really well in kind of like covering it up and making it look kind of like a sea town. And I don't know. So here I'm kind of buying some furniture I feel like might work. I was considering if I want to do this royal scene on the right, maybe even what does this ride actually look like. I feel like the scene on the left is definitely the one that has the most ideas. It's kind of giving under the sea. So that one I feel like is very well conceived. And then I was really trying to decide like what's going to go where, what's actually going to look good, what is going to translate into Webkinz. So here we are kind of deciding on track vehicles. That was another big thing. So another thought was using that like dinosaur back as a sort of shell because the ride vehicles in this ride are shells. So that is kind of what I'm considering here because I do feel like a big part of the theming is like making it look like a ride and having the track, especially considering what I was inspired from. So here I am trying out a bunch of different options. How can I get it to look like a shell? It seems I was pretty like set on the little dinosaur back. I felt that was very helpful. And then I think what I ended up deciding on is this sort of ride vehicle that ended up looking pretty good. I wanted to hold off and decide a couple things before I committed to it. Just because it might look different from the front, I don't want it to look too busy. So here I am trying out a couple more like fin theme to really like fill in that area in the top left. I used a lot of the coral from, I think it was like an event recently that gave them away. I don't know, I feel like that really helped make like an under the sea sort of vibe. So those were really helpful. Then I wanted to make that like middle layer really sort of underwater mysterious, especially if I am going to make it look like Ursula's lair. I need to make it a little darker. But if I make it just like her treasure trove, then I'll have all those little items. This was a fun thing. Putting it behind that just allowed the tops to peek out, so it looked really good. And I felt like these stoves kind of added a nice background to, again, help distinguish different scenes from each other. I think that's so important in rooms like these to have sort of like walls that allow it to, you really just have to differentiate, especially when it's just one wallpaper. You can't use different wallpaper. You have to differentiate using things on the wall like I did. So that was something I was really working on. This I was like, doesn't Ursula like make a potion? Like that sounds right. still working on this royal thing, really like workshopping it and not feeling good about it. So we went through a lot of trial and error on this, and frankly I'm not going to get this done in this first design, and like a really big room like this is going to go through a couple of designs. So basically at this point, the only thing I was feeling good about with this far right section is the antique shop on the wall, because it just like really distinguished it from the other parts. So I was really trying to figure out what I could do to make this look good. It's hard. It's really hard again, because not every scene is going to translate directly to the Webkinz world items. So here I thought I'd go through the Wish Factory and just see what items we have that could work. I think I had a lot of hope for the tiles and the fart fountains, but I don't know. I wasn't feeling strongly about any of them, and I didn't really want to spend wish tokens on anything. So there were definitely some items I was intrigued by, but still wasn't convinced that there was anything easily accessible that could look good in this room. And that's the other thing, like, sure, I can wait for trading, but for something like this that is so design heavy, like, it really is something I have to make do with the items I have, because otherwise, like, you can trade for something you think would fit, and it's just not going to work the way you want. So I never want to be depending on trading. Here I wanted to add some like undersea animals, especially if I was committing to the like under the sea song. There's all those animals singing, so I wanted to, put in little plushes I have. I don't have a ton of under the sea animals, so there I was considering a turtle, but he just looked a little too, I don't know, like a above ground plushie. So that was kind of the limit for animals, but I checked the W shop again. W shop's pretty limited, but worth looking. I was like, some frogs are definitely under the sea, maybe. Like, that is a sea animal. Sometimes they can go in water. Here I looked for other ride vehicles just to see what options there were. Thought the water raft might work, and maybe would be worth coming back to, but I think the best bet is using that dinosaur item as the back to kind of look like a shell, and attach some sort of ride vehicle on front. Here is where I started thinking about a different path. So basically, I thought the cannon could also like give a royal vibe, but here's where I started shifting to the kiss the girl scene. So I figured that the royal scene just really wasn't coming together, and is it, what was I representing with it? Was it like a key part of the movie? Did it actually help like show anything in this room? Was I kind of trying to make something work that wasn't going to work? So then I started a new sort of design here. So basically, the kiss the girl scene, they're in like a beautiful, water setting. Here I am selling things to get money. You can tell I'm low on money, but that's okay. I'll get it back soon. Best way to go into these design things is to just like have a ton of kinzcash so you don't have to worry about money, because that definitely limited the progress I could make in this video. But I was basically going to try and do like a really like tree heavy water path, like beautiful grass around it, and like the boat in the middle that they sing on. So it's kind of difficult to do. Again, we're struggling with the same issues of distinguishing these above ground scenes from below ground. So I put the ivy walls back up to try and have a backdrop that isn't like the ocean, which is helpful because the fish are not visible with the ivy in there. So this is me just trying to have like a nice variety of trees to make it look pretty. It's difficult with the grass because once you put one tile down, you can't put another tile on top of it, and I wanted the water. So here I use these amazing firefly tiles and then some spring water tiles. So I only had a couple of those, so I had to make do. So here I am kind of like working with like making the spring or the little river kind of just go off into the side, which is my best suggestion for when you're low on items. And then I thought I really spent a lot of time trying to figure out what boat. Basically, like how to fill the rest of this scene, because the big part of the scene is he's like rowing the boat. So I tried out a bunch of different boats. I didn't really have anything that worked. This is a pretty odd item because obviously, like, you want a simple rowboat, but I don't, I think I'd have to do some research on maybe some items that could also fit this because, you know, you are pretty limited by the W shop and there is like a ton of items here in Webkinz, but, you know, I think it's best to start off with just W shop items and then come back and, you know, add in if you see something to trade for, because it's just so hard. There's so many items that it's very difficult to find specific items that you want to trade for. So here I am, I'm really trying to make this work because you need just like a simple rowboat, because obviously you can't have like Ariel and Eric who are in the boat in the movie. So I try out a bunch of different things, and I kind of moved to working on filling in the scene with some pretty flowers, maybe a bridge. I didn't love how that looked. And also I feel like I need to rewatch the movie, or at least these scenes, just to fully understand what I'm trying to do, because this is just like a distant memory. Like, from what I recall, like, he's rowing on a boat. Maybe I'm misled. So I don't know. I know, like, they're watching, and there are animals singing in this part too, but, you know, again, we're limited on what animals we can use. So I felt like it was coming together. I loved the, like, lightning bug tiles. Those really added something and kind of made it so, like, you know, sweet. Here I am trying out another potential ride vehicle. And here is where I had a great idea. I went to the pirate theme, and lo and behold, they do have a rowboat sort of item. And if you turn it around, I figured this might be the item to get. And of course, I didn't have enough kinzcash, so here I am selling some food items to try and get enough. I really had to go through my doc, which is so funny. I'm including this because this is the reality of designing. I sold a bunch of farm fresh items because I have a million of them, kept for this very reason. Usually, I mean, at the point where I'm at now, I've gotten to a point where I can usually have like a pretty regular fund of kinzcash, so this is not often a problem, but whenever I design a room, you know, you go through kinzcash very quickly. So I also was being like oddly particular on which items I sold, so I apologize. We have to watch this. I should have just cut it, but again, it's the reality, and I was feeling very strongly about this little rowboat. I needed that rowboat. So here's a fun insight into, I guess, ways to make kinzcash in Webkinz. So okay, so purchase that rowboat. This is a big moment. Will it work? Because this was pretty key to this room. I didn't want to like leave without really exhausting my resources, and I felt it was sufficient. It's not perfect by any means, but it can at least hold it down until I find another one. So that's where I decided to leave it. I definitely do not think it's perfect. I had another idea of these like things hanging down, but yeah, that's kind of my progress today, and I'll be back.